For 300 years, the galaxy was at war. The Velthari Dominion and the Carol Collective fought across hundreds of star systems. Planets burned. Moons shattered. Entire species were forced to choose a side. Those who refused were destroyed. The war became normal. Children were born into it. Soldiers never knew peace. The Galactic Conclave, once a place for trade and diplomacy, became nothing more than a room for threats and accusations, and through all of it, humanity stayed neutral. Humans were still considered young by galactic standards. They had only reached the stars 2 centuries ago. Their technology was advanced, yes, but not ancient, not legendary, not terrifying. They were traders, engineers, builders. They sold medical supplies to both sides. They helped repair damaged space stations. Their ships carried food and medicine instead of bombs. Many species respected them. Many more laughed at them. The Velthari called humans soft primates. The Carol called them profit seekers, hiding behind peace. Humans did not respond to insults. They simply continued working. But what no one noticed was this. Human ships traveled everywhere. Human observers watched every battle. Human AIs recorded every strategy. Human analysts studied every mistake. They said they wanted peace. But they were learning war. The incident happened in the outer Trion belt. A human civilian convoy was traveling through a contested zone. The ships were clearly marked. Their transponders broadcasted neutral codes. They carried refugees from a destroyed mining colony. Then a Velthari patrol fleet entered the sector. The Velthari captain saw unknown ships near a recent battle site. He did not check carefully. He did not slow down. He ordered fire. The attack lasted 4 minutes. By the time Velthari scanners confirmed the ships were human civilian transports, it was too late.
Thousands were dead. Children.
Engineers. Doctors. The Velthari High Command released a short statement. A tactical miscalculation. Regrettable losses. They expected anger, maybe sanctions. They did not expect silence. On Earth, no leader gave a speech that day. No fleet moved. No message was sent. For 6 hours, humanity said nothing. Across the galaxy, many believed humans would accept the apology. After all, they always chose peace. Then, something unusual happened. Every human nation called for an emergency session. Old enemies sat in the same room. Political rivals stood side by side. The debate lasted 3 hours. The vote lasted 30 seconds. The result was unanimous. For the first time in their history, humanity would enter an interstellar war. The announcement shook the conclave. The Velthari laughed at first. What can they do? One admiral asked. They build hospitals. The Carol were more cautious. They had studied humans before. They knew about Earth's history. A world filled with constant conflict. Nations rising and falling. Wars that reshaped continents. Humans were not peaceful because they were weak. They were peaceful because they understood war too well. Within days, strange reports began to spread. Human shipyards increased production by 400%. Civilian factories were converted into military manufacturing centers. Cargo freighters were recalled and refitted. Artificial intelligence systems were upgraded under emergency protocols. Human media stopped broadcasting entertainment. Every channel carried the same message. Total mobilization was not in space. It was in human behavior. There were no riots, no panic, no chaos. People volunteered. Millions signed up for military service. Engineers worked without sleep. Doctors prepared trauma stations. Farmers increased food production. Human society did not collapse under pressure. It became focused, sharp, determined. Observers from other species began to feel something unfamiliar. Fear. Not because humans were shouting threats, not because they were showing superweapons, but because they were calm. Too calm. Velthari intelligence finally intercepted a classified human transmission between fleet commanders. It contained only one sentence. That Objective: end the threat permanently. No revenge speeches. Just a clear goal. When the first human fleets left their solar system, they did not travel in shining formations like other races. Their ships were heavy, armored, practical, built not for glory, but for survival. And as they entered contested space, something strange happened. Both sides of the war, Velfari and Kal alike, stopped fighting. Just for a moment. Because suddenly, for the first time in 300 years, the galaxy was not thinking about each other. They were thinking about humanity, and a quiet question spread across the stars. What happens when a species that survived its own violent history decides it has had enough? The galaxy expected anger. They expected loud speeches. They expected humans to rush forward in revenge.
They were wrong. Humans did not attack immediately.
Instead, they moved quietly. Human fleets did not head toward Velfari core worlds. They did not aim for glory battles. They did not challenge the largest enemy fleets. They disappeared. Velfari scouts reported strange activity near supply routes. Cargo depots stopped responding. Fuel stations went dark. Communication relays began to fail one by one. At first, the Velfari High Command believed it was technical failure. Then, an entire supply convoy vanished. No distress call. No debris field. Nothing. Only silence. 3 days later, the convoy reappeared on galactic networks, not destroyed, captured. Human forces had boarded every ship without blowing them apart. The Velfari crews were alive, but imprisoned. The cargo was gone, and attached to the broadcast was a simple message. Military resources seized, civilian crew unharmed. This is only the beginning. The Velfari were confused. This was not how war was fought. War was about destroying fleets, breaking planets, showing dominance. But humans were cutting arteries instead of throwing punches. Within 2 weeks, Velfari fleets began facing a new problem. They had ships, they had weapons, but they did not have fuel, or food, or replacement parts. Human strike groups moved like hunters. Small, fast task forces attacked weak points and disappeared before heavy reinforcements arrived. They avoided large battles. They targeted logistics, shipyards, and transport lanes. The Velfari grew frustrated. Finally, a Dominion admiral set a trap. He left a supply hub lightly guarded, pretending it was vulnerable. Hidden behind a nearby moon waited 3 full Velfari war fleets. The humans took the bait. A small human fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the station. The Velfari sprang the trap. Hundreds of warships surrounded the humans. The Dominion admiral smiled. Now, he ordered, crush them. Velfari cannons fired. Space lit up with plasma and missile trails. The human ships did not flee. They tightened formation. Their outer hulls shifted, thick armor plates sliding into place. Energy shields overlapped, forming layered barriers. Instead of spreading out like other species, the humans locked together like a wall. The first volley hit. Explosions filled the darkness. Velfari commanders expected debris. Instead, the human formation held. Damaged ships rotated inward while fresh ships rotated outward. Repaired drones moved between vessels during battle. Fires were contained. Hull breaches were sealed. They were fighting like a single organism. Then the humans responded. But not at the largest ships. They targeted engines. Weapon arrays. Precise strikes. Calculated. Cold. Human ships pushed forward slowly, absorbing damage while returning controlled, deadly fire. Boarding pods launched through the chaos, slamming into key Velfari cruisers. Close-quarters fighting began inside those ships. Humans advanced through smoke and sparks with steady discipline. They did not roar battle cries. They communicated clearly, moved carefully, cleared corridors, one by one. Within an hour, the trap had failed. One Velfari fleet was crippled. Another was retreating. The third had lost its flagship. And the small human fleet? Gata Salon.
damaged, but standing.
The Dominion admiral watched the battle reports in disbelief. "These are not traitors," he whispered.
No, they were not.
News of the battle spread quickly. The KRL collective, who had once hoped to use humans as a distraction, began to worry. Human fleets were not reckless. They were patient. They studied opponents during battle. They adapted in real time. And most frightening of all, they improved. Each engagement made them stronger. Captured Velfari technology was analyzed within hours. Weaknesses were identified. Countermeasures were developed almost immediately. Human war doctrine changed mid-campaign, evolving faster than any species had seen before. They were not fighting for revenge anymore. They were solving a problem, systematically, coldly.
Efficiently, across the galaxy, military analysts ran simulations.
In scenario after scenario, one result became clear. If humans fully committed their total industrial power, no fleet could outlast them. And then the most terrifying report arrived at the Galactic Conclave. 1. Human High Command had issued a new strategic objective. Phase 2, direct pressure. The first phase had only targeted supply lines. Now, they were coming for the Dominion itself. And for the first time since the war began, 300 years ago, the Velfari felt something they had not felt in centuries. Fear. After the failed trap, the war changed. The Velfari were no longer confident. Their fleets stayed closer together. Their supply ships traveled under heavy guard. Their commanders stopped underestimating humans. But it did not help. Human forces entered former Velfari territories slowly and carefully. They did not destroy everything in their path. Instead, they captured shipyards. They secured planets. They took control of defense grids. And then they did something unexpected. They helped civilians. On the planet Rethys, 9, millions of Velfari citizens were starving because supply lines had collapsed. The Dominion military had taken most of the food for their fleets. Human ships arrived in orbit. Velfari civilians prepared for bombardment. Instead, cargo pods fell through the sky. Food, medical supplies, water purifiers. Human soldiers landed soon after, but not to conquer the cities. They built shield generators to protect them from orbital attack. They repaired power stations. They opened emergency hospitals. The Velfari people were confused. These were supposed to be enemies. Why were they helping? A human general answered in a public broadcast. "Our war is not against civilians. It is against those who continue this conflict." The message spread across the stars. Many species in the Galactic Conclave watched carefully. This was different. For centuries, war meant total destruction. Planets were punished for the actions of leaders. Entire populations paid the price. But humans were drawing a line, and they refused to cross it. The Velfari High Command saw this as weakness. They believed humans were soft, so they decided to prove a point. On the industrial world of Tharkel, Velfari forces gathered civilians around military factories. They placed weapons and command centers inside population zones. They believed humans would hesitate. They believed humans would refuse to strike. They were wrong. Human fleets entered the system in full force. Instead of massive bombardment, small precision strikes began. Special operations teams landed silently outside the cities. Drones scanned buildings. Snipers targeted military officers from extreme distances. Then the power grid went dark. Human cyber units had infiltrated the planet's systems weeks earlier. Velfari combat networks shut down. Military vehicles stopped working. Defense cannons turned offline. Human soldiers moved in with speed and control. They avoided civilian areas. They pushed directly toward command bunkers and weapon storage sites. Fighting broke out in the streets, but only where Velfari troops resisted. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, every major military target was secured. The factories were intact. The civilians were alive, and the Velfari commanders responsible for using them as shields were captured. Across the galaxy, Military leaders stared at the reports in disbelief. The humans had fought with restraint, with control, with discipline, and still won completely. The Kal-El collective began to feel uneasy. They had once believed humans were useful allies against the Dominion. Now they saw something else. Human fleets were not driven by anger. They were driven by principle, and principles could not be controlled. Kal-El intelligence ran new war simulations. In many of them, after defeating the Velfari, humanity turned its attention to ending the entire cycle of galactic war. By force, that possibility terrified them, because unlike other species, humans did not fight for conquest. They fought to finish things. Permanently. Back in Velfari space, rebellion began to rise. Civilians who had received human aid started questioning their leaders. Soldiers who had seen humans spare cities began doubting propaganda. Some Velfari captains refused orders to fire on human medical ships. Small uprisings spread across multiple systems. The Dominion was cracking from the inside, and human forces kept advancing. Not wildly, not brutally, but steadily, like an unstoppable tide. Then came the announcement that shook the galaxy. Human High Command declared, final objective identified. Central Dominion Fortress System targeted. The Velfari capital system, the heart of their power. The place no enemy had reached in 300 years. Massive Velfari fleets gathered for one last defense. Kal-El observers pulled their ships back, unwilling to be caught in what was coming. Across the stars, billions watched live transmissions. Human armadas moved toward the fortress system in numbers never seen before. Not rushed, not chaotic. Organized, silent, determined. And as the two greatest fleets in the galaxy prepared to clash, one truth became clear to everyone watching. If the humans won this battle, the war would not simply shift. It would end. The Central Dominion Fortress System had never fallen. For 300 years, it stood untouched. Massive defense platforms surrounded the system. Thousands of warships formed layered lines of protection. Planetary shields covered the capital world like an iron shell. The Velfari believed this system was impossible to break. Now, human fleets stood at its edge. They did not rush forward. They did not shout threats. They moved into formation. Across the galaxy, billions watched the live broadcast. Velfari cannons fired first. The darkness of space exploded with light. Plasma storms and missile waves raced toward the human armada. Human ships did not scatter. They advanced slowly. Shields overlapping, armor absorbing hit after hit. Damaged ships rotated backward while fresh ships moved forward. Repair drones worked without stopping. It looked less like a fleet and more like a moving wall. Then humanity answered, not with chaos. With precision, long-range rail cannons targeted defense platforms one by one. Stealth strike craft slipped through gaps and disabled shield generators. Electronic warfare units blinded enemy sensors. The Velfari fought with fury. Humans fought with control. Hours passed. The outer defense line collapsed. Then the second. Finally, human forces reached the inner orbital ring around the capital planet. This was where the Velfari made their last stand. The Dominion flagship emerged from behind the planet's shadow. It was massive, larger than any human vessel. Its weapons could crack continents. It fired. One human battleship was destroyed instantly. Across the galaxy, silence fell. Would humans answer with planet-killing force? Would they destroy the capital world? Instead, human command made a different choice. Boarding fleets launched. Hundreds of armored pods shot toward the flagship under heavy fire. Many were destroyed before impact, but enough survived. Human soldiers breached the hull. Inside the flagship, fighting was brutal. Corridors filled with smoke and sparks. Gravity systems failed. Fires burned through decks.
Humans advanced step by step. They did not retreat.
They did not scream. They moved forward. After 6 hours of close combat, the Dominion flagship went silent. Human forces captured the High Commander alive. The remaining Velfari fleet began to fall back, and then something unexpected happened. Human fleets stopped firing. Instead of destroying the planet below, they transmitted a message. Surrender.
Lay down your weapons. The war ends today.
The Velfari leadership expected extermination. They had done the same to others for centuries. They expected revenge. But humanity did not come for revenge. They came to end the war. One by one, Velfari ships powered down their weapons. Defense platforms shut off. The Central Dominion fortress system surrendered. Days later, the galaxy waited for the final act. Would humans take control of Velfari space? Would they rule the Dominion? Would they demand tribute? Instead, humanity announced new terms before the Galactic Conclave. The Dominion military would be dismantled. War leaders would stand trial. Borders would be redrawn. But the Velfari people would remain free. No slavery. No extermination. No occupation beyond security stabilization. The Karel Collective protested. They wanted the Velfari destroyed forever. Human representatives gave a simple answer. Extinction creates future monsters. Accountability creates peace. The statement echoed across the stars. For the first time in 300 years, the war was over. Not because one side was wiped out, but because one species refused to continue it. Years passed. Human fleets remained strong. Shipyards stayed active. Training never stopped. The galaxy rebuilt slowly, and whenever tensions rose between rival systems, whenever old hatred threatened to spark new conflict, one question was always asked: will the humans join? Because now everyone understood the truth. Humans did not enjoy war. They did not seek conquest. They did not threaten loudly. But if pushed, they would mobilize completely. They would adapt faster than any enemy. They would fight with discipline instead of rage. And they would not stop until the threat was gone. Not weakened, gone. That was why the galaxy cowered. Not because humans were cruel. Not because they were merciless. But because they were something far more dangerous. They were capable of total war and still chose mercy. And everyone knew, if that mercy was ever lost, nothing in the stars could stand against them.